Beautiful. Welcome. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I have another fabulous, delicious guest with me today. We have Faith Lau. Am I saying that right?
Laux.
Laux. See, I need to put that X on there. Faith Laux is funny. I see your name all the time and I just go, it's Faith, it's Faith, it's Faith. So I don't say your last name very often. She is a somatic sex and relationship coach. And I am so excited to play with you today and dive in. I think we're going to be diving into, I hate to say what we're going to dive into because then we go somewhere else, but I believe we're going to play with Tantra meeting kink and playing with that. But let's see where we go.
That sounds
Welcome.
great. I'm excited.
Yay. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing really
Good.
well.
Faith was with us probably a couple years ago, where we talked about your journey healing from cancer,
Mhm.
playing with Tantra and how it really saved you. It was a beautiful episode as well. And I'm
Mhm.
really excited to dive deeper. But let's give a little, let you give a little update on who you are, what you do, who you serve, just so people can hear you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Faith Laux. As you said, I'm a somatic sex and relationship coach, and I serve people who are, oh, so ready to dive into the shameless sexuality that they've always wanted
Mm.
and be able to pair that with healing. And so to me, there is deep healing in our sexuality. There's so much energy that gets locked up when our sexual energy is locked up. And to be able to begin to free those frozen waters and melt them and melt the body to be able to have what we desire, ask for what we want, receive it, and feel safe in actually getting that which we want. It's a big deal.
Mm.
So I work with individuals and couples, and I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina. And lately, I would say that my personal journey has been exploring a lot about the realm of kink and just playing in that world and finding so much juiciness and expression and power. And I want to share that. I think there's a lot of stigma that exists around
Mhm.
kink, and people have a lot of different perceptions of what that world is.
Yeah,
And
we're
a
going to
lot
break
of
that
those
down.
perceptions, what's that?
We're going to break that down.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those perceptions are actually false. Um, and and so once we're able to remove some of the stigma and see it for what it really is, then we can really play.
Play. And one of the words I think you missed off, pretty sure you missed off there, of how much deep healing can actually come from also playing with kink and tantra, not even in the sexual realm, right? Like sexuality is not the whole piece of tantra. It's that 8%ish. And the same with kink. Kink is not all about sexuality either. We can use that energy and polarity to play between, the masculine and feminine energies, but it's not always about sex. And that is
True.
so important to lay out right here because people hear both those words or they Google both those words and it comes up with sex. But
Yeah,
that is not true.
it's true. You're right. And when that dawned on me, I knew that I was a kinky woman. I think I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, received the language of what kink was in a podcast. And Jaya was, the creator of the erotic blueprints, and she kind of pared kinky down to being turned on by the taboo, turned on
Mm.
by doing the thing that you're not supposed to be doing. And I was like, holy shit,
Which
that's
could be
me.
speeding,
That's right, exactly,
right?
right. Um, and when I realized that, I was like, oh shit, I'm kinky. I'm turned on by the taboo. And and it was a revelation. And so then
Hmm.
then I thought, oh, kink in my head, I had that preconceived notion that kink and sexuality were inextricably linked. And because my husband wasn't kinky, therefore I couldn't have any kinky experiences. But when I went deeper on this healing journey and just kind of was like, well, I've got cancer. And I
Mm.
may have a very shorter lifespan than I anticipated. What do I want to do with that shorter lifespan? Oh, I want to get kinky. And so I started diving deeper into that world. And with the consent of my husband, especially because I learned that kink was not synonymous with sexual. And so I
Mhm.
could have these really impactful kinky moments with people and kinky scenes, and it wasn't breaking any vows. You know, the boundaries were really clear. The consent was specific in terms of what was on the table. And once I learned that, it was like, oh my God, thank goodness. And let's go. It's on.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. So let's break that down. What is kink versus BDSM? If we can go there. I also trained with Jaya many years ago, like 2018. So I loved the erotic blueprints. And for those who are listening are like, what are these erotic blueprints? Like, go take her quiz. There's a free one, there's a paid one. I recommend the paid one. It's like what, $20, something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
to actually see how you are relating and how your partner is relating in regular relationship dynamics, not just in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
What's your love language? Like it goes deeper than love language. Like it really
Mm-hmm.
goes deeper into shadow and not. But let's break down what is kink and how commonly misinterpreted it is with linked with BDSM. It's not always the same.
Yeah. I would say that kink is the broader umbrella term that overarches, this particular world. And underneath the umbrella exists BDSM. So, bondage, domination, BDS, submission, or sadism, masochism. There's lots of different ways
Yep.
to actually turn BDSM into like the way that you interpret the letters. Um, and that is more the realm of physical play. BDSM, I associate with impact play, sensation play. Um, that's more it's more the realm of like the physical kink. And then there's this under the umbrella of kink, there's also the realm of psychological kink. And so that is
Mm-hmm.
more role play and playing with power dynamics. And there might not be any physical touch at all. Maybe it's a master and a slave, and they have no sexual relationship. They don't even have necessarily a relationship of touch, but they are engaging in a dynamic together. I would say the lines are blurry. I wouldn't necessarily say there's like this is and that is that, because what I just
Mm-hmm.
described could also fall under the category of BDSM.
It could
Um,
play, yeah.
yeah, it's
And it
fluid.
can also just be in the natural dynamic of masculine and feminine, and each of us following and falling into us being in our natural for feminine, being in our natural surrender and allowing our partner to, male partner, if that is, in the masculine, to play and lead. And yet some people might be like, oh my gosh, we're going backwards. And it's not about a partner telling us what to do and controlling us. It's not that dynamic. It's not about control and abuse and going there. It's actually about playing with the energies with full consent with each other and it feels great. Like it feels absolutely amazing for me to surrender and
Mhm.
lean into the masculine and allow my partner to hold me and protect me and guide me and keep me safe.
Mhm.
Like that feels so delicious.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
hot. And it's
Of
hot.
course,
So then if
of
we're going to take
course.
it to the bedroom, it's hot,
Yeah,
right? It's truly, oh, I can't even describe it. It's just like so deliciously yummy
I
to my
know.
system.
I know. I mean, how many people listening to this podcast fall into the category, like myself, probably like you, where we want to be ravished? We want, like, we may not admit it, but we want sort of that cover of the romance novel swept away, like, oh my, like the oh my God experiences of life,
Mhm.
like deeply yearn for that kind of surrender.
Almost
And
every woman you ask deeply desires to be ravished. They might not
God,
admit it, but they've always wanted it.
it's a thing. It's incredible. And so within the context of kink, I can be ravished, and there doesn't have to be penetrative sex or genital touching. But for example, like I'm just going to paint a picture of how I could be ravished in a way that like my husband would consent to. A spanking bench or a St. John's cross, whatever's easier for somebody to imagine. and I'm there, I'll just do the cross, which is where your body is, your arms are spread out, your legs are spread out. You might be bound to the cross, you might just be holding on. And then one person, two people, three people, whatever you've negotiated in a scene, they create this like beautiful onslaught of sensation where it's, for me, I like a sensual impact scene. So sensual spankings where it's like massage mixed with spanking until I'm really warmed up, and then like heavier impact can come. But I don't want it to be too heavy, and I really don't like stingy. And so I'm able to articulate with a little bit more specificity with my play partners what it is that I'm looking for. And to have this like, again, this muchness of being like, my body is being ravished, it's being honored, it's being overwhelmed with sensation and pleasure in a way that just lets me melt into the moment, into myself, and into that experience of safety. I think that that was one of the things that really it made our teacher, Layla Martin, it made her stand out to me when I was looking for a teacher in this realm. Her commitment to deep safety and making sure that the nervous system knows that it is safe to let go. It is safe to feel. It is safe to experience this, whatever this is, whether it's hurt or despair or rage or fear or shame or pleasure or
Rupture,
bliss, like
whatever,
the whole
anything in our
spectrum.
regular.
Like
Yeah.
safety is the foundation. And so when we're talking about getting ravished, or having kinky experiences, or even just beautiful, intimate experiences with our partners, I think, and this is what I work on with people that I coach. It's funny, like people hear that I'm a sex coach, and I think again, there's this like misconception that a sex coach is teaching you all about technique. I think a good sex coach actually teaches you how to feel safe in your body, how to feel safe
Yes.
articulating what you want, how to create safety in your relationship so that you can have these deep, profound healing experiences, either by yourself or with your partner. It's about
Yes.
safety. And yeah, I'm here to talk about kink and also about techniques. But what's funny to me is that the foundation of all of it is safety, which isn't necessarily a sexy concept, but when you actually feel into it and think about it, it
Mm.
is so sexy because it's
Yes.
the linchpin. If it's not there, then the nervous system is tight and you're
And we're
just repeating.
dysregulated
Yeah, you're
and we're
frozen.
hating and we're, yep.
Exactly.
And we have to create that safety. And in that safety, we can ask for what we need. We can speak up. We can realize that we're triggered. We can realize we want to say stop. And
Yeah.
this, again, you can be putting this in the realm of in the bedroom, but this can be also, you know, in the kitchen. There was an example a few weeks ago, or probably a few months ago now, where, my partner just went up to go to bed and I was like, whoa, 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 what about the cup and the lights and the this? It was actually shaking my safety because I don't like to be alone in the dark, and I had to take the dog outside in the dark and all of this, right? So it's creating safety also in your everyday, asking for what you need and want and playing with that. It could
Mhm.
be a fight that you're able to create safety in and continue communicating. So yeah, there's so much to play with in the kink realm. And then there's so much more that you can take back and play even with your partner to, yes, you can play in a scene, but you can play in your relationship dynamic too. You can play with surrendering and like you can't move kind of thing, or hair pulling, or verbiage that's like being a little dominant. I love to play with that dominant and submissive energy because it actually feels natural to me. It feels very natural to me. Now, had I not done my healing work around my sexual trauma, around men,
Mhm.
around women, around being safe and having to protect myself and take care of myself only throughout
Mhm.
my life, there is no way I would be able to surrender. I
Yeah.
would be totally tied up and scared, and I would be, there'd be a mess in there. But because I've done my healing work around my sexual trauma, because I've done my healing work around abuse and control from childhood as well, physical, verbal, emotional, all of it. Um, and because I've healed myself with the feminine and also healed with the masculine, I am able to surrender. And it creates such a beautiful dynamic of playing with control between my partner and I. It's absolutely the most delicious thing ever, in
Mhm.
and out of the bedroom, both
Yeah.
and.
Yeah. And as I'm hearing you talk, for some reason I'm having a flash of a memory pop into my head. And so I'm just going to share it because it's kind of the opposite. Um, it's the opposite of surrender. And it was what I would call a healing experience as well. So within the world of kink, you've got tops and bottoms, which is like leader, follower, dominant, submissive. There's different words that you can put to it depending on what feels right to you.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say it sounds like it's both of our natural state to be a bottom, to be a submissive. Um, and then there's also a term called a switch, which is people who can move in either role and go back and forth depending on who they're with and what the context is in their life.
Mhm.
And so I have friends here in town who host kinky parties about once a month, and I've been going for some time. And so I've got relationships, friendships, rapport with different people. And I came to this one party feeling a lot of grief and loss and anger. Just, it was one of those hard weeks where you're just processing a ton. And for some reason, the emotions that I was experiencing felt way more like in order to feel them and move them, they felt outward rather than inward. So instead of receiving a scene, I wanted to give. And so I approached my friend who typically is a top, but she's a switch too. She can be a bottom. And I said, and I knew that she really liked heavy impact. And I wanted to let myself go. I wanted to
Mm.
give a heavy impact scene. And so I approached her and asked her if she would be willing to bottom for me. And she was very excited about it. And so I got her on the spanking bench. I got all the tools and implements that I wanted to use. And I warmed her body up because that's one of the first important things. If you're going to do an impact scene or a proper spanking on somebody, you don't just launch into it. The longer that you take to warm that body up, the deeper you can actually go, the farther you can actually go with impact. Not that like more is better, but there's a respect to warming the person's body up. And it also, again, it goes back to safety. You're letting this body know, I feel you, I care about you, I'm going to warm you up, and then we're going to bring you through waves and waves of higher and higher sensation experiences. And so I warmed her up, and once she was properly warmed up, I went to town on her with heavy impact. And so that's spanking with my hands, the use of floggers and riding crops and things like that. And this is I will just set context with full consent. Like we had negotiated in advance the scene. We knew our safe words. We knew what was too much. We knew what was, and what she would say if it was too much. And I don't even think I got close to her too much, even though for me, I don't know how many minutes it was, but even though for me in the scene, my arms were getting tired. I was like, shit, I need to work out more in order to be able to give as much as I want to give. I can't sustain this level of impact, of giving impact as it stands now. I was like reaching my own edge of capacity. But I will say that there was a deep catharsis that happened, and I was able to just channel all of those feelings and that like pent up, that like, oh, I don't know where to put this. And I just put it into her. And it was intense. And it was probably hot to see from the outside. But I wasn't really focused on anybody else but her. And after the fact, she, once we cooled down and she started to come back to reality and was able to sort of like bleary-eyed look at me with this like doughy-eyed gratitude. And she was just like, oh my gosh, I know you've had a hard week, but thank you. That
Mm.
was transformative. And I was like, girl, not just for you. Like it was also transformative for me. And so there's a way that within this realm of kink and also within the realm of sexuality, like we need catharsis. I think in society we kind of go through life, ooh, a little monotonously, where we don't have like, we have certain outlets for things, like I can take a run, I can go to the gym. I don't know what else physical we have, that's like sanctioned for releasing these big feelings and letting them out. And so we need to create spaces for us, for ourselves.
And there's a few ways, different ways to do it. There was some two things I want to talk to that you just spoke of you can do a scene, right? Like you created the scene, but you can also do a parallel. It really parallels to also what we can do in everyday life, even in our relationship. And you mentioned the warm up, and the warm up can be the vulnerable conversations
Mhm.
through the week with your partner, actually asking for what you want, actually
Yeah.
sharing where something hurt a little bit, or where you felt a little wounded, or where you felt like, hey, something was missing. Because when you warm up, I just saw this vision as you're warming up her, when you warm up your partner in every day, Monday to Sunday, you can also then move into a much more deeper, vulnerable, ecstatic play in vulnerability and intimacy, but then also in sexuality. It's a both and then I also saw, yes, you talked about you can use submissive, dominant, control. What's the other word for not control? I guess I can
Surrender.
surrender, submissive. Yeah. Right. And yes, in relationship, I love to surrender, especially when it comes to intimacy and sexuality and in the bedroom. I love to surrender. But for example, me everywhere else, I am not the submissive everywhere else, right? I am
Mhm.
going and going and running business. I've been an entrepreneur for 26 years, raising 3 kids. I can get shit done. Like those are some of my superpowers. And I think that's also why I do like to surrender when it comes to my relationship. I
Mhm.
want to
Mhm.
surrender and take care of me.
Mhm.
I've been giving so much the rest of the time that I need now to be taken care of. And again, that can be sitting on the couch, and that can also be grocery shopping or planning a weekend, but it can also be also in the bedroom. So we like to play with both polarities. And I think that's the beautiful dance that we can do in relationships, of playing. Where are our superpowers? Where do we want to surrender? Where do we want to take more control? Where do we want to play? And yeah, those are just two parallels that I wanted to kind of speak out to our guests who are like, kink, what?
I
I
know.
want you to I want you to see also the what can happen in regular everyday relationships, which are also kink dynamics. And we're just talking about the kink, and now we're going to bring in some of the tantra, right? Of it's playing with this dynamic of, and sometimes you have to actually, not sometimes, almost every time, you have to discover first who you are and what is your natural instinct. Like not what are you showing up? Because if you looked at me for the first 30, 40 years of my life, I was more in control. Now, why was I in control? I was in control because my safety was taken away so much as a child, from an abusive stepmother, from a stepfather who sexually assaulted me, from a mother who betrayed me after that. Like I lost all control.
Mm.
So I decided, I believe, at 14 and a half, to take my power back in the only way that I knew, which was I am in charge. Nobody else is with me. This is my life. If I want anything, I have to do it myself. I'm alone. So I learned how to be that people pleaser, that go, 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 that really dominant masculine energy, but it wasn't actually me underneath. So I had
Mm.
to heal those layers of trauma and those layers of conditioning from society, from everything else, to actually
Mhm.
come back to myself and see, oh, so I
Mm.
don't want to be in control all the time. I do want to be held. I do
Yeah.
want to surrender. I do want that intimacy and vulnerability. And I do want to be held. And that is what is so healing about playing with this realm of Tantra and kink, where I can reach new, deeper levels in relating that I'd
Yeah.
never dreamed of, because I've
Yeah.
deeply craved it all my life.
Yeah. I think I love how you took what I said about warming up and brought it into everyday life. I think when we go back to that theme of wanting to be ravished and having these peak experiences, these peak sexual experiences or peak intimate experiences of vulnerability and open-heartedness, there is a warm up that comes, there's like, I see these experiences as three chapters, and so there's the warm up phase. and the negotiation. Like we can talk, like it just depends on which lens we're looking at. Um, the warm up, the negotiation, the communication, the experience itself, whatever
Mm,
that deep dive is. And then there's what we call aftercare in the
mhm,
world of kink. And that's something that is also extremely rich and beneficial for everybody to have in their back pocket when it comes to thriving in their intimate lives. So you have this peak experience of openness, whether it's a body experience, a heart experience, a mind experience, whatever this big peak is, there's a transition back into everyday consciousness. There's a transition back into the world. And I think often when we have these like beautiful sexual experiences with our partners and we've done all the things and we've laid the groundwork and we're ready to like come together, we have this great experience. And then we're not necessarily educated to notice like, oh, what we do after the experience matters, like to be able to talk about what we need each person. Like one person might want cuddling and the other person might want space, so to be able to negotiate that in advance and maybe come to a compromise. And maybe it's a warm bath. Maybe it's watching something funny together. Maybe it's a little massage. Maybe it's words of affirmation, and like, but there's like a bevy of possibilities that we get to attune to be able to sort of have a softer landing and to be able to integrate that peak experience and not just have it be a blip in the map, but something that we get to build upon and really let it sink into our bones. Um,
mm.
it's a
Something just
beautiful
came to
thing.
me. Who knows, might be the title of this episode, but it is conscious connecting. It's
Hmm.
conscious connecting in the bedroom, out, in a scene,
Yeah.
in a fight,
Yeah.
in lovemaking, in everything. It's conscious connecting. And we haven't been taught it, right? We have not been taught how to communicate and
Hmm.
connect.
Hmm.
We just didn't have the role models. We didn't have that kind of language around it, but we have it now. And it's about, having the conversation. What do you need? What do you want?
Hmm.
I'm talking like right out of the bedroom here too. Like, let's talk
Yeah.
about everyday
Yeah.
life. Like,
Right.
what do you need? What do you
Right.
want?
Right.
How do you want to digest it together? Right. The
Right.
aftercare. And it is conscious
Mhm.
connecting and communicating
I
and
love that.
learning that in our everyday life, taking it into the bedroom, taking it into our relationships, taking it into scenes,
Hmm.
taking it into friendships,
Hmm.
parenting. There's all these power dynamics that no matter what, you are having power dynamics with your children, with your boss, with your partner, with your siblings, with your parents,
Yeah.
but we're doing it very unconsciously. So
Mhm.
it's about bringing in conscious connection. But first, we have to do some of our work and learn what our bodies are feeling, peel back some of the healing layers of trauma, finding that safety within our body, learning how to listen to our body. Because if we don't know how to listen to our cues, we're going to most likely blow out our window of tolerance and get very, very triggered very quickly. So we have
Yeah.
to learn how to find that safety to hold ourselves and go about life. And it's such in a more conscious, aware, awake, pleasurable way.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And I think that I think that something that's striking to me from what you said is the thought. I was like, "Ooh, this is great." And now it has totally left me. It's going to come back.
Perimenopause, whatever.
I
Yep.
know, I know. Check. Okay, just give me a moment because it was a good
Yeah.
one. I was like, "Ooh, this is real good." I hope you edit this.
And there is no editing, but it is all welcome because, of course, it's Tantra.
Okay, great. Great. This is Faith forgetting that beautiful thought, that beautiful nugget that she wanted to build on from what you said. Okay, I'm ready.
Conscious
It had
connecting
to do
and
with, yeah, conscious
communicating.
connecting and warming up and oh gosh, I was picturing myself in the kitchen as you were talking. Um,
Mm,
and oh, I remember. Okay, so shame. I feel like if people are listening to this and they're like, okay, where do I start concretely, guys? This all sounds great, but how do I actually land this in my experience? Where do I go? What do I do? The best place to start is where we are dissatisfied.
Mm,
Where's the thorn? What are the thorns in our relationship that we resent? It's a strange,
mm.
maybe, place to start. If you're like, I want more pleasure, great, let's talk about pain.
Yeah.
um, but the thorns are the thing. Like, if we actually looked at the thorn and we were like, God, I just don't feel like I get enough support from my husband. I'm doing all the freaking things. Ah, I just want
Mhm.
to feel more supported. Like, okay, great. What would that look like? What would more support be? What are some ideas for how that could look? Like, do you guys take turns doing the dishes and doing bedtime together? Asking for what you want. I feel like we have this stigma of shame around like wanting too much and asking for things. And we sometimes need to get, practice in the simple art of asking for something,
Yeah.
and like pulling away shame from want. Like, it's okay
From
to want
asking, shame
things.
from desires, shame from
Yeah.
asking somebody to do
Yeah.
grocery shopping for you, shame from
Right.
asking them to carry it in or put it away,
Right.
shame from not looking like a good mother or not looking like a good wife or asking for too much. Oh, yeah, that stuff rears its ugly head all the time.
Right.
And we
And
need to
so
decondition
that
that.
is that's where you start. That's where their vulnerable conversations begin. And that's where you get to then build a new dynamic, new systems, new ways of being, so that the resentments get to be resolved and dissolved, and new, more satisfying experiences replace them.
Mhm. But that conversation, I think for many, if I go back to, my previous marriage, having those conversations also wasn't received.
Yeah.
So obviously I was in the wrong marriage, but it took me a long time, like, 26 years to figure that out. But right, I hadn't done my work until the last 8. And then you go, okay, I'm going to practice here and I'm going to ask for what I want and what I need. And sometimes it wasn't received. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean to stop asking.
Yep.
It you actually just have to evaluate, which I did for 8 years, right? I
Mhm.
took a long time
Yeah.
evaluating, "What's going on here? Can you meet me? Are you gonna show up?" And sometimes the answer is no, and
Yeah.
that is okay because
Yep.
I went into the dark, right? You say you have to feel the pain. I went into the pain. I went
Mhm.
into all my trauma, all my pain, all my everything we'd created,
Mhm.
and I went into it and I decided I needed a more empowering way and I needed something else. And he was not able to give that to me. And then on the
Yeah.
other side, I'm met by the relationship of my dreams. Has it been amazing the entire time? No, we've had our highs and our lows and things that we've had to work through. But he was willing to meet me. He was willing to stand up and meet me at those rupture points where it's like, okay, this isn't working. What's going on? I had trauma. He had trauma. I had triggers. He had triggers. And we had to go into some deep, deep depths. But what that allowed with conscious communicating and connecting and
Mhm.
talking about it and showing up for each other, it allowed the most exquisite lending, and it was happening all the way through too. That's why I really stayed true to what was ahead of me, and even when he couldn't see it, I like knew it in my bones. And what was on the other side, it has been this epic, epic being seen, being held, being loved in a way that, as I said earlier, I have wanted since I was born. That is what I have wanted, and I never received. And he is able to meet me in this way that I couldn't even have dreamed of.
Mm.
But again, I went into the pain. I was willing to look at my shit. I
Yeah.
was willing to heal. And that again, it's kind of like a power dynamic, right? You have to
Mhm.
surrender to go there.
Mhm.
You have to allow the your own pain almost to be in control and
Yeah.
allow it to siphon through. But again, we're creating safety, we're using nervous system regulation, we're
Mhm.
using all of these tools. And I think it's a good point here now to what is Tantra? And then let's blend them here because Tantra is that consciousness to me. Tantra is seeing that divinity in myself, in my feelings, in my trauma, in my pain, in my suffering, and seeing it in you, and seeing it in my partner, and seeing it in my children, and seeing it even in my, ex when he lashes out at me. Like there's still divinity in there. And
Yeah.
can I choose to see that divinity in each of us and also the universe, the earth, the animals, all of it?
Mhm.
Can I choose to connect with it all consciously and allow it all to move me in so many different directions that I don't even know what to say here? But
Mhm.
I'm going to let you speak to it.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful sort of like pulling back the veil on what Tantra is. Yeah, I would say the same thing in different words to me. Tantra is meeting whatever is here with love and acceptance.
Mm.
Like whatever is authentically so in the moment, like no experience left behind, no experience relegated to the shadows and numbness. Not that I mean, numbness is a wonderful coping mechanism, but I think it's like when you practice Tantra, you're just, you're increasing your capacity to meet whatever is so more and more, you know? And so if it's,
Compassion, love, approval. There's
yeah,
nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to fix. That's what
right.
you come back to. All those, oh, I'm not good enough. I didn't do that right. I suck at
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah.
actually, those are meant to be you, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big aha that I see across the board with everybody. Everybody thinks there's things wrong with them and they're not good
Yeah.
enough, not
Yeah.
worthy enough.
Yeah.
And that is not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
One,
Well,
one
you
of
know,
my
like
mentors said that.
I will say, like I was trained for many, for many a year with a personal growth organization in Chicago that we focused on social intelligence and emotional intelligence and did some really deep work, you know, and there was a lot of like connecting to the pain of not being good enough and re-imprinting with the experience of being good enough. And what feels actually more comforting to me as somebody whose core wounding very much lines up with the belief that I'm not good enough, it actually feels more freeing, authentic, and nurturing to acknowledge that I am not good enough, that
Mm.
I do have, like, I am a fallible human. I am imperfect. I am not going to be like what everybody wants me to be. And to just acknowledge, like, whoa, I'm not good enough. And I can even love myself in the not good enough. That feels far more empowering to me than the like spackling over with affirmations. I'm good enough.
Yeah, the
Oh, you know
affirmations
what I
don't cut
mean?
it. You have to feel it in your bones. I've gone
Like,
beyond that though, and get to the root underneath. And I've seen that every single human thinks they're not good enough.
mhm, for
So by
sure.
default, we're all
Yeah.
fucking good enough.
Yeah, it's a both and. It's a both and. It's like
It's
when
a
you
both
accept that you're
and.
not good enough, you can be like, oh yeah, none of us are good enough, and that's good enough.
And yeah, every single person on this planet feels that way. And just the
Mhm.
fact that you are here makes us good enough. It does. It makes us more than good enough. We're here for a reason. Like I'm at that point where I'm beyond that, and I can trust that the universe, the goddess, all of that has my back and everything is happening for a reason.
Mhm.
Right back into, and I'm here for a reason. There's a reason, and that is good enough for
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
Right? So it's a different
Mhm.
way of looking at it, which I love that we have a little opposite way of looking at it, which is okay. Again, they're both good enough.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with either. It's
Yeah.
whatever one lands in your body and brain so much more, but there is nothing to fix. In the lens of Tantra, there is
Right.
nothing to fix. As you
Right.
are right here, right now, not good enough and all, is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Exactly.
And that is a beautiful place to be.
Mhm.
So let's
Mhm.
talk about blending the Tantra and the kink.
Yeah. I would say to me, one of the most beautiful, powerful bridges that I have found between the two is the bridge of presence. So through Tantra, through these tantric practices that we're trained in, I have gotten better and better at being in the present moment, being in my body, tracking the sensations in my body, and just being really exquisitely present and attuned. And so when I take that presence into a kink scene,
Mhm.
especially when I am the top, when I'm giving, I then get to attune to my partner and create this sort of bubble of presence and experience together where we're just locked in. I feel
Mhm.
them, they feel me, I feel them feeling me, they feel me feeling them. Like it's this really beautiful
And
exchange
everything else
of
drops
energy.
away,
Yeah.
including time. Everything just
Oh, yeah.
disappears.
Everything disappears. And so there's this beautiful term within the kink community called subspace and dom space. And so when you talk about everything disappears, you get to experience this flow state. This, when you're a submissive, it's that state that you get in where like all the to-do lists that constantly are like, you're tracking and you're like, oh, I've got to do that. And oh, don't forget this. And that part of the brain, I bet you if we actually did, you know, hook somebody up and track their brain waves, like they're in a different frequency when they're
Yeah,
in
different part
subspace.
of their
It's
brain.
flow state. And so that chatter goes away and you drop into deep presence, deep in the here and now present moment, moment by moment, surrendering
And
to whatever's next and what's here, what's here, what's here.
and there's reverence. And
Mm-hmm.
there's also exquisite pleasure. And there's
Mm-hmm.
also exquisite feeling of being seen and held, whether there's love involved there or not, right? If you're working with other partners in a kinky scene or working with your partner, there's that. Even then, even if it's just friends, there's this deep love and reverence and connection that I believe we're all looking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's something that I want to highlight with what you just said, and it's also tying back to the last theme you brought. The fact that you're able to experience the love and the surrender with your current partner that you've always wanted since you were little, it's there because it started with you.
Mhm.
It's there because you built the ability and capacity to love yourself and meet yourself in those dark places and be able to just accept the
Mhm.
bright and the dark, the pretty and the ugly, quote unquote, and bring all of you to the table with acceptance and reverence. And so then you get to meet your partner. And when he loves all those parts of you, you're like, yeah, those parts of me are lovable. Yeah, I
Mhm.
can totally receive that because I've already given it to myself. And so I
Mhm.
think that's part of the journey that we go on when we're looking for these deep, unbelievable relationships that we get to transform and heal with. It starts with us. So even if people aren't
Yes.
partnered with anybody or in a
Oh,
community where they're going to be, having kinky friends and experiences, like you don't necessarily even need that. It's
yeah, I did
important.
7 of those years on my own. That was my own healing with my own coaches, with my own
Yeah.
sex love relationship certification, where we go deep for a full trimester,
Yeah.
all on ourselves without on coaching others. It's deep on our own work.
Yeah.
Started, with other work before that too. And it is the deep work that I did with myself first
Yeah.
that has allowed me to show up in this way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is what has allowed me to hold space and to hold space for his moments and his triggers, because he hasn't done the same work that I've done, right?
Mhm.
And there's this beautiful co-regulation that also happens there too,
Mhm.
where he's living with the tantrika here, so what do you expect? There's going
Mhm.
to be me regulating him regulating me, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And to play with this power, control, surrender dynamic in our intimate relationship is with kink and tantra, which I was just sharing with you before the episode. I play with tantra. I always have. I know I'm also kinky and energetic and sensual. I'm technically a shapeshifter, if we're gonna go by Jaya's words, right? Which I trained with Jaya years ago too. Um, I'm all of it, and I know I am, and that's the beautiful part. It's like I think a lot of women like to play with it all, right? Sometimes we want sensual, sometimes we want energetic, sometimes we want touch and kink and play, and all of these is change up in a whole moment. So what we were playing with this weekend at the Tantra Festival was a Tantra kink class where we were playing with touch, and we were playing with breath, and we were playing like with airy touch and water touch and fire touch and earth touch. And it was hot. And again, the whole room disappeared. We were fully clothed, and the whole room disappeared. And it was just him and I and the teacher when he spoke. Teachers, there was male and female. And at the end, it was like, we've been playing with this the entire time we met, right? I hadn't put words around that we were actually playing with kink and
Mhm.
tantra in our relationship since we met. He
Mhm.
wants to be more in control, and I'm like, yay, because I don't want to. I'm in
Yeah.
control enough in my everyday life. I
Yeah.
want to surrender in my relationship.
Yeah.
And playing with those energies and power and dynamic is so delicious. It is so powerful. It is so healing. And it creates space for more vulnerability, more intimacy, more pleasure.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like we keep going deeper and deeper and deeper in our relationship, and it can't go any deeper. And then we go deeper. It
Yeah.
keeps doing it. It's done it
Yeah.
like 5, 6 times now. And that is the beautiful way of playing with the polarity of the masculine, the feminine, the control, the surrender. It's such a beautiful dynamic, the kink and the tantra.
Mhm. Here, here.
Presence, healing,
Yeah.
love, vastness, reverence, pleasure, pain. In we do have pain. Like, we don't have to talk about flogging pain either. We can talk about, we do have pain because we are humans with a lived experience. We have pain from our childhoods, from our growing up, from
Yeah.
all the way through. But we can use that as our superpowers. We can bring that back into our body and use that to grow and heal and transform in the most delicious of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think our pain, our wounds, that's where that's where the vulnerability is. That's what connects us to our humanity, and
Mhm.
to the like pricelessness of being alive, and to not take for granted that we're here and we get to live this life, even though it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's through the pain that we actually get cracked open and have access to these deeper appreciations of what it is to be
Bliss,
alive.
bliss, peace,
Mhm.
love. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes to all of that.
Mhm.
It's through our pain, it's through our wounding that we can actually come home in our body
Mhm.
and be our most alive, exquisite, blissful selves.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
it's through the tantra lens of consciousness and divinity and presence, and through the kink of playing with, the taboo, which I love, right? It could be speeding, it could be saying no, it could be going against whatever your family says, right? Like, that could be a taboo, right? It can be also in the bedroom. There's so many taboos.
Yeah.
It could be wearing things that make you feel sensual and sexy and alive.
Mhm.
There's so many taboos to play with, but to play with what your taboos are, to play with your power dynamics in your own body, but also in your relationships.
Mhm.
And mixing the two is absolutely delicious. Yes, I loved your kiss. Yes, it's
Totally.
delicious.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there anything else feeling alive there that you want to add to that?
Well, as you were talking, I was actually, I don't know, I had this sort of glimpse of, I mean, I feel like cheating is quite rampant in our society, no matter who you are, what your politics are, what your socioeconomic status is. Like, that's a thing that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people suffer from and experience. And it's painful. And when you look at cheating, it, and when I think about it, like with certain clients, it's like people want to feel alive. They want to feel
Mm.
connected to their bodies, and people choose cheating for so many different reasons, so I can't put it into lump it into one category. But what I do see is that people are doing it to feel alive, and there is a taboo in it. I'm not supposed to be doing this. It's
Mm.
so hot. And so there's a kinky thing happening within infidelity that sort of heightens the experience. And I just wondered to myself, like, if we had the ability to talk to our partners about it, and talk to our partners about what we wanted, and to just have this like open communication where one person's like, yeah, I'm sexually shut down and I have no desire to change that. And the other person's like, well, I am not sexually shut down. I am sexually ravenous. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm shameless about it because it's part of what makes me feel alive and connected to my body and to just the deliciousness of life. And this other partner's like, great. I want to be married to you, but I don't really want to have much sex. Okay, what can we do about that? Like, instead of this person going out and just, duplicitously behind behind the back. Like, what if we were able to just come to some sort of agreement where things get to be brought to light without shame? I think that's part
Mhm.
of what you and I do that's really impactful, is to just allow shame to be part of the conversation, to be
Has to
here. And
be
when it's
shame.
seen
Yeah.
and brought to the light, it doesn't have such a strong sort
Pull.
of pull towards the dark side. Like, shame can just be here and we can acknowledge it and be like, "Ooh, it feels scary for me to tell you how much I want and need sex." Well, it feels overwhelming to feel how much you want and need sex. I know that, and I'm not interested. You know what I mean? But to
Yeah.
shamelessly talk about it and to not make this person wrong or this person wrong,
Yeah.
that is a beautiful and important thing that exists
That
in what it
shame
is
needs to
that
be
we do.
vocalized everywhere. It has to be
Yeah.
vocalized everywhere. Sex, how you're feeling, asking
Hmm.
for too much,
Hmm.
taking too much, needing
Hmm.
more,
Yeah.
um, feeling sad, feeling embarrassed. That shame has to be named 110%, because when we do,
Hmm.
this whole portal opens up. That
Hmm.
is absolutely, again, beautiful,
Hmm.
and healing,
Hmm. Hmm.
because whatever is, shameful, we're holding in the dark, and we're actually judging ourselves, and we're thinking there again, there's something deeply wrong with us.
Right, right. And that, I think, is a very common thought that people have when it comes to their fantasies and sexuality, is like, ooh, it turns me on, but there's something wrong with the fact that I'm turned on by this. What if there's nothing wrong? What if it's fine? What if those desires are okay? As long as you're not hurting somebody without consent, like, it is good. It is not good. It is what it is. This turns you on. Great. How can you integrate this into your life in such a way that you get to satisfy that deep yearning that you've had for decades but told nobody about?
With
Um,
integrity.
right, with integrity, exactly, and with
Hmm.
honesty. And I think shame is the shadow of a kinky person often. Like, there is something wrong with me. I'm the only one. And the truth of the matter is, you're not the only one, and there's nothing wrong with you. And so in this course, Kink Curious, that I've created, one of the modules is on kink and healing. And it's got subcategories in each module. And we've got, overcoming sexual shame and
Mm.
how to heal with kink, how to create transformational experiences for ourselves with these practices, because it's no small thing. And it's like, okay, great. Again, like, okay, so you're talking about all this stuff, but how do I actually do it?
Yeah.
What do I
Yeah.
do?
We need guidance. We can't do this alone.
Yeah.
Especially, we just can't do it alone. We
Yeah.
need some guidance. We're not taught this. We're not taught the conscious connecting. We're not taught the conscious communication. We're
Hmm.
not taught how to heal our own traumas. We're
Hmm.
not taught how to eradicate our conditioning and reclaim who we are. So we
Hmm.
do need to start unpeeling the onion layers, right? And really learning who we are, finding safety. That's the other thing. We're not taught how to find safety in our bodies. This should be taught in kindergarten.
Yeah.
How do you feel? You're angry. That's okay. You
Yeah.
can be angry. We're not
Yeah.
taught how to find that safety. So,
One of
yeah,
the
you do
things,
need support.
I'll give a really beautiful, concrete example of things that we can do with our children to help teach them safety and consent. And it's giving them a safe word.
Mm.
And so the safe word for our daughter is red. And so, because often, adults tickle kids, we're wrestling, we're playing, and then the kid is laughing. But at a certain point, they can feel it internally. Ooh, I'm done. That's too
Yep.
much. And
I
they might be
remember that.
laughing and saying, no, no, stop. But they're laughing. And so we, as the adults, can tend to be like, oh, but she's still laughing. So I'm going to keep tickling her, even though what she's
Mhm.
saying is stop. And no, no, I'm done. Like, but she's still laughing. So we keep going. And so
Yeah.
that is a perfect example of how that wiring happens early on of my voice doesn't matter. My body's messages don't matter. I'm going to override them. The adult matter. Like, this other person matters more. But basically, my husband and I have trained ourselves. We've trained our parents. So her grandparents do this, that when they're tickling her, when we're tickling her, when she says red, as soon as she says red, we completely stop.
That
so
is
that
amazing. I love it.
there is like she gets to imprint into her body, my voice matters, my boundaries matter, my boundaries will be respected. And so there's this like, it's like we're laying an implicit foundation for her so that if
Mhm.
somebody, when she is of age to start exploring sexually, if somebody overrides those boundaries, she has an implicit body memory of like, ew, that doesn't feel
Stop.
good. I expect you
Red.
to honor my red. Like I know what an honored red feels like. I know what boundaries honored feels like.
Oh,
And
I
that is
love
what is
this.
normal to me. And if you're not going to play in that inside of that game with me, then I'm not going
Get
to stay
out.
with you, you
Yep.
know? So
Oh,
that's
I
just one
love
concrete
that. And I
thing.
want to celebrate her grandparents for respecting that because that is a new level for them. It's a new level for us, but it's an extra big level for them for respecting that and holding that. That is brilliant. I cannot tell you how many times I was tickled to the point I peed my pants,
Yeah.
right? Like as a young
Right.
child. And it's
Right.
fun in the beginning and you want to play with that adult, but then it becomes very uncomfortable and you're like,
Yeah.
stop, but you're still laughing because you can't stop. And in
Right.
the meantime, you're uncomfortable.
Right.
Yes. Ugh, I remember the feelings right in my solar plexus, right? Like just,
Right.
whoa,
Right. You know,
that
and I
is
think
brilliant. I love
there's
it.
an important piece of education and communication to create that kind of safety. Because what are we doing with that? We're creating safety. And
Mhm.
so her grandparents, yes, they are from a different generation. They weren't taught consent. They know what the word means, but it's not in their lexicon, in their daily jargon. And
Mhm.
so it was up to us. I mean, to set context and to educate them. We know that you want our daughter to be protected and happy, and to live a wonderful life where she gets to fully be a child. We're on the same team. To that end, this is how we're teaching her about consent and boundaries and using her voice. Are you on board to honor this thing when you're tickling her? And once they're educated to the larger context of why it is we're doing what we're doing, and we're not just like throwing a judgment out at them or an expectation without teaching them about the context of why,
Mhm.
like, I think when we take the time to educate as opposed to just like, do it this way, it it matters. It really matters in the long run. And that's why there's no enmity or animosity of like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
they're raising her so much differently than the way that we raise
Yeah.
them. And like, I feel so much judgment. Like, no, we're on the same team. And this is why we're doing what we're doing.
I love it. And for those who are like, why red? It's like a traffic light. Green is
Yeah.
green, green is go, yellow is ooh, and red is stop,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that is a quick word that can come up to your head. You can use this with your partner
Yep.
anytime. You can use this anytime you're playing. And, there's so much play to be had, but it is important to know each other's boundaries in advance. Just like you set a container around a kink scene, to know how to vocalize because we can quickly shut down and go into our very quick trauma responses of freeze, of flight, of fawn, which is people pleasing and just whatever you need, appeasing.
Hmm.
So to have a quick one word that can come up
Yeah.
is really brilliant to go, oh, I hit my max because we don't have the words for it always, but we can
Yeah.
quickly get out a red, hopefully, or
Yeah.
a yellow.
Yeah.
Yellow is we need to
Exactly.
talk.
Exactly. And I would say other words to be able to pull out when we're with our partner and we're feeling that sense of like the dysregulation, the anxiety coming up, or something happens in an intimate experience, pause is helpful and slow down is helpful.
Hmm.
Those two in particular, and then stop, of course. And
Yeah.
again, teaching our partner in advance about those things. I've got a client right now who, is working through some sexual trauma and working through creating safety in her current relationship where she feels very respected and honored. And yet there's still moments where he doesn't quite listen and respond as in the here and now as she would like,
Hmm.
and so she'll make the request and it's not quite honored. And like, okay,
Hmm.
there needs to be context shared. Our
Yeah.
partners need to know why pause matters and what it is that we're experiencing and how we're using this sexual dynamic to heal. This isn't just pleasure, like, this is pleasure and, you know, we're on this journey to becoming whole and integrating who we are, all these aspects of us, some of which have been really painful in the past. And so to come
Wounding,
to
yeah.
the sexual dynamic with this understanding that there's going to need to be an education involved to create the safety, it's just part of it. There's nothing wrong with it. You and I had to get educated in order to be able to do the things that we do.
Yeah.
It's, again, no shame.
Yeah. And I use kind of that language, but I'll probably actually change to actually using the colors going forward. But if we're having a conversation that's getting in depth and it's feeling like too much, I will name them now because I have the skills and the tools to do so. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm hitting my level soon. Like I'm hitting my edge. I can't do much more here.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a yellow, right? It's coming up
Mm-hmm.
to a yellow. It's like it could be an in-depth conversation. It's like, okay, I'm hitting my yellow. I'm getting close to I can't hold anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you don't really want to get to red. You want to share your yellow if you can as you're getting
Mm-hmm.
close so that you can
Yeah.
continue to digest and integrate and go back into another conversation or communication or connection cycle
There you
of
go.
sharing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is important to share in all aspects. I love that you've brought it in to tickling. That is brilliant. She can drop that word anywhere. Great Uncle Harry can come in and he goes, "Give me a hug," and she just looks at you and goes red. Like
Yeah.
exactly, right? Like she can bring it into anything and everywhere.
Yeah.
And this is what we do need to teach our children so they can create that sovereignty and hold that
Mhm.
sovereignty again and create that safety
Mhm.
that we never got.
Mhm.
And it didn't work so well. It's created a
Mhm.
lot of trauma and a lot of wounding and a lot of pain, a lot
Mhm.
of conditioning, a lot of shame.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's teach the next generation now how to
Yeah,
hold this so much better than we ever could have.
absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I
Thanks.
love that. So we're going to drop all your links in the show notes as well, but I know you have a beautiful course coming out and please share where people can find you as well.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Faith Laux and on my website, faithlaux.com. And I've got a gorgeous program, Kink Curious, that sort of builds a bridge for people who are interested in unshaming this aspect of their lives and just letting themselves play. And it's a tutorial. It's a very hands-on, it's a hands-on course where people are going to walk away and understand, oh my gosh, there's so much more I can be doing with myself, with my partner. And it just like widens the lens. And I would say that there's also, so it's very practical. And then it's also very somatic. And it does weave in a lot of beautiful healing experiences. So guided visualizations and journeys, inquiries for people to look at, really connecting with an erotic archetype and up leveling their erotic play. The grand finale scene in module 10 is a beautiful experience with my play partner and friend Emily, where I, you know, film the negotiation with her so people can see these are the kinds of questions that you ask when you're creating the boundary and the safe container for a scene to occur in. And then the scene itself, it's a sensation play and impact play scene. It's not sexual. Her clothes are on the whole time. Minimal clothes, but they stay on the whole time. And and it's so beautiful. Oh, it's so gorgeous. And then we film the aftercare also. The denouement, the coming down. And I think it's really helpful for people to actually see and witness, oh, it's this. Oh, I could do that. Oh. So I'm delighted, I'm excited, and people who are listening, if they're like, wow, Faith, I want I want to get to know her better. They are welcome to sign up for a complimentary coaching call to experience, whatever the next layer of onion healing is and exploration. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. It's been a total delight to connect with you.
Beautiful. Yes, it has been. I've missed you. It's been too long. And for the links for these free calls also will be in the show notes. My links also down there. I do only have 2 spots. Now we'll see when this airs how many spots I have open for private coaching at this point is what I'm offering only at this point. Well, there's always my website, which has some standalone courses on it that you get to do on your own. But for working alongside in some private coaching, one-on-one or one-on-two with couples is also an option right now for me. And yeah, free call, hop on. And if we don't align with you and you're like, I don't know if either of these women are the women that I want to guide me, through this healing, that is okay. We know so many others we can put you in touch with so that you can find that safety, find that comfortableness where you are able to fully, safely drop in and do your work, do the healing work that you need to do to become the most incredible self you already are, but are hiding right now. So it
Mm.
is within you and it is available to all of us. And that's why we do this. That's why we keep doing the podcast, keep showing up with all of these amazing, amazing coaches and showing what really is possible, because it is possible for all of us and thousands of others that I know of. And I know there's more. And it is possible for everybody. So thank you.
Mm. Thank you so much. So good to be here. Blessings to
So
everybody
good.
listening.
Yeah. Till next time, everyone.